Hello, welcome back. It's another week on Out on That Line podcast. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex, as always. Alex, how you doing this week?
How am I doing this week? Let me ask you this. How many other podcasters host their show with wet hair? Okay. Like to think I'm kind of flying an innovative flight over here. All right. No pretense. We don't have to get all dolled up to do this. All right. The content is what's king. And baby, nobody makes content like we do here at Out on That Line. So I'm stunning tonight, Jeff. How are you?
I am doing very well, and I was just thinking about it. We might have the most appearances on a podcast by any artist might be the one that we're talking about tonight.
Is that a shoot? We
I,
did.
I
I think you're right.
I think I'm correct, and we are of course going to be talking about Miss Spacey Kacey, Kacey Musgraves, and her new album Middle of Nowhere. But we've done every one of her, well, almost every one of her albums on here. But I think she is the most occurring return artist on this podcast.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right because we've done everyone since Golden Hour.
Mm-hmm.
No shit. Well, how you like us now?
Well, how do you like them apples?
Damn.
Yeah. And in general, I think there is, it's been an up and down ride with Miss Kacey Musgraves and the albums she's released. I think Golden Hour forever and always will be a top tier album as far as I'm concerned. And certainly of ones that we've reviewed on this podcast. One of the very first, was that the very first episode that we ever did on this podcast was Golden Hour?
Was it? Holy fuck. Now I got to look. We're getting slobber knockered by lore over here.
Yeah, I think it was.
Oldest video. Let's see. Oh my God. It was a double feature with Kacey Musgraves and Margot Price.
Yeah. I was pretty sure that was the very first video we ever did.
Yeah.
And I think what we've struggled with previous Kacey Musgraves albums is that standard of Golden Hour. It's like, how many all-time classic albums can one artist make? And Golden Hour is an all-time classic album. I mean, as far as country goes, like that kind of like indie pop, like it hit a huge slipstream for people in how popular that album got and catapulted her to superstardom. And I think there was a struggle for her to like try to match that, trying to step out and do different genres and stuff like that, and to varying degrees of success with those other projects. You can certainly go back and check out our other reviews. But Middle of Nowhere is, I believe, a return to, I don't know if necessarily like the Golden Hour Kacey Musgraves, but even previous to that, of the Same Trailer, Different Park and pageant material era Kacey Musgraves, where we're back into country Kacey here.
Yeah, and I would say definitely hints of the inspiration in Golden Hour, but not quite as cosmic. This is a straight down the line country album.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very Texas album. I mean, it's like, you have your requisite Nashville sound. Obviously, you live there, you work there, it's produced there. But steers very, very hard. Steer, no pun intended. We're talking about Texas. But very much, yeah, a return to form without looking backwards. It's interesting because if you look thematically at every album, Golden Hour is that kind of like blissful, everything's going right, wonderful celebratory time in her life. Star-Crossed was the divorce album. It did not come together. Way too glossy and just like the songwriting wasn't there. To then get into the more like introspective Laurel Canyon kind of like that sort of vibe with Deeper Well. Coming back into this, like I liked Deeper Well, did not like Star-Crossed. Golden Hour as a standard. This surprised me. I didn't think I would like this as much as I did, but like a true return to form for Kacey Musgraves.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely some callbacks to previous albums, like the song Blowing Smoke. There's the song Abilene. It's hard to say what the trigger really was. She went out for cigarettes, ended up on a bus. Like is very much like throwing back to that, the Blowing Smoke song, even previous to Golden Hour. I think this is you're right in calling it a very Texas album, because there's some very like Latin music influences on this, and that is something you hear. Like I hear it all the time in Texas. People driving by in their trucks, like listening to, Tejano music is kind of what they call that, where it's got that sort of Spanish influence on the country music. Willie Nelson plays a ton, like his version of country is very much has a heavy like Tejano kind of like influence on it. And I think Kacey Musgraves being so influenced and inspired by Willie Nelson, you get a lot of that version of country on this album. You still get the classic like Kacey Musgraves tongue in cheek. Like she can be a very funny songwriter when she wants to be, because she's in general, I think, a very funny person. But it seems like there is where she was like really searching for something on Deeper Well. Middle of Nowhere makes you feel like she kind of found it.
And I think found peace in the concept, as like woo as this sounds, but the peace in the concept of Middle of Nowhere. Like she has spoken to the fact that it's a strange transitional period, but not emotionally uncomfortable, just unprecedented, very introspective. So in dealing with that, she found like a strange comfort, as our good friend Mitchell would say, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's kind of what this album is. Like there are like, you go to a song like Dry Spell, which is hilarious. It's the very, very, very Kacey Musgraves sense of humor lyrically. Like, come on. It's been a real long 335 days, and the last time it wasn't good anyway. I'm so lonely with a capital H. If you know what I mean. I've been sitting on the washing machine. Like, it's very, very fun. It kind of is made in the mold of like Follow Your Arrow, where it's like roll up a joint, like that kind of stuff, where a lot of people at the time were like, well, that's an audacious thing for a young country pop star to say in a song. And she's just abandoned all pretense here and is like, I gotta get the beef buzz to tune it down, if you know what I'm saying. So like you have like the sense of humor, obviously, in Dry Spell, and just very catchy, very hooky. And then you get something like Coyote, which is just like very, very beautiful. Like the idea of like, I saw a coyote on the highway when the light shined in his eye. I should just find the exact lyrics. Why am I paraphrasing? Because it's so good. Like I was walking in the middle of nowhere today, just walking on a trail, middle of nowhere, Maine. And this song was on. I saw a coyote running down the highway last night, and it made me think of you. For a second, as my headlights reflected in his eyes, it looked like he'd been crying, trying to find somebody or someplace he's always looking for. That's great. That's like great imagery. It's great songwriting. Like she's not in her own head here, just painting a picture. And, there are moments where I think she got a little too cute on this, but that is not one of them. And they're few and far between.
Yeah, I think there's always been, a tendency where, she tried to kind of trying to force the country too much, I think, where I think she is a hippie at heart that has lived in the country, and I think trying to make that, like, make it too much of the cowboy style kind of country is like, it doesn't, not saying it's not authentic for her, but I feel like her strength is kind of those where she's talking about emotions and feelings rather than describing like a scene. I think she's always been better at cleverly describing how she's feeling and putting it into context for people to understand than she's been about like trying to set a scene or trying to do, like Star-Crossed, I feel like was way too ambitious in the things that she was trying to do. And I think it fell short. I think Deeper Well kind of went too far the other way, where I don't think it was ambitious enough of like towards what she's capable of. But I think Middle of Nowhere hits the perfect sweet spot, kind of like Golden Hour did, where it's got that country influence to it, but like she really can be a pop artist at heart. I think that's where you get those two things that just kind of hold hands together really well. I mean, you have your songs like Abilene that are very good, like slow country music. It really, really fantastic. But then you have Dry Spell, which I think is like perfect classic Kacey Musgraves, where it really shows her chops her chops of like being that clever songwriter, like turning that phrase like John Prine would. And then you have Abilene, which is much more like her kind of Willie Nelson style country, where her like storyteller kind of country. Um, I think she, I don't know what I would say she needs to like improve upon, because I think she's right now being exactly the artist she wants to make, and she might make something completely different next time. I think she's very much an in the moment kind of songwriter, and it really depends on like how well she can describe that moment is how well that album is going to come out. I think she's been very successful throughout her career. There's been certainly a couple of misses, but I think this was an album where she's kind of addressing some past issues, especially the song that she does with Miranda Lambert. Like they've had their beef. That's probably your most classic, like honky tonkin kind of country song. And, Miranda Lambert, I always been like okay with her. I think she's always been associated more with that like just pop country kind of style. I think she's underrated as far as country artists go. I think if you listen to her albums, like she's a great singer. And I don't know how much of the songwriting she does on her own. I think that was part of the issue is that Kacey Musgraves wrote a song that Miranda Lambert basically took. But the ability to go back and kind of address those things and just settle them, I think is really the idea here, is just like being okay with who you are, how you deal with things, not trying to ruin anybody else's life, just understanding that people are going to be who they're going to be and you're going to be who you're going to be, and being comfortable with that. And I think that's what this album really represents for me from her. And there really are some, I mean, there's like, I didn't love Horses and Divorces. Like it kind of had those clever country lyrics, but it felt very contrived to me, to be honest with you. Like, especially like how many times do you have to talk about whiskey? Like, do we have to do that in country songs? Like, come on.
Yeah. Whiskey Under the Bridge. Yeah. That was when I said earlier, I'm like, she gets a little too cute in some moments. Yeah. This is definitely one of them, saved, I think, by the lore. So if you don't know it, I think this could come off as like the definitive low point of the album. And I say that relative to the quality of the rest of it. But it reminds me of Orville Peck and Willie Nelson. Mm-hmm. Cowboys are frequently secretly fond of each other. These even the Horses and Divorces, they even like have the same kind of pattern, which I get it. If you're doing like extremely countrified, there's only so many variations within that. But this one for me definitely felt the most gimmicky. Like if I had to describe it, it definitely felt like the whole thing came from the premise of horses and divorces. Hey, that rhymes. So I mean, like, it's cute being like, I can't believe we don't have exes in common. We're both from Texas. And then I wanted to ask you about this line, and I want to make sure that I get it verbatim because this is important music journalism. So let's see, when we get to the end, yeah, I can't believe we don't share any exes because we both love cowboys and we're both from Texas. We both love Willie. This is where we got to key in. We both love Willie, but I mean, really, what asshole doesn't like Willie? So if you looked at on its face, yeah, who doesn't love Willie Nelson? Okay, but go with me on this one. Take this journey. What asshole doesn't like Willie? Is this a reference, as Sabrina Carpenter, friend of the show, might say, a reference to entering through the back door? What asshole doesn't like Willie? I put it to you on the horny Kacey Musgraves album. It's a distinct possibility.
It is a distinct possibility. I don't know if that's how they meant it, but I bet you she'd laugh if she heard somebody interpret it like that.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so.
Yeah, I didn't know where you were going with that, and I was like, oh, now I understand. But yeah, that to me, I mean, that like we keep talking about the song. Obviously, it's one of the it's probably one of the more popular ones on the album because of, I think mostly because it had Miranda Lambert on it too, who, Kacey Musgraves is very popular herself. I think Miranda Lambert has a kind of a different stratosphere of the fandom. Like the people that like Kacey Musgraves love Kacey Musgraves. I think Miranda Lambert is much more generally known throughout the music industry than Kacey Musgraves is. So I think that's probably what brings more people into this song. But it's funny, if I bet you if she ever did listen to this podcast and she heard you wonder if that was talking about the two hole, like that would be very funny. I bet she would find that very funny.
I sure hope so. I like to think so.
Yeah.
You know, hey, get at us. If
But
you
I
want to come
really
on the
I
show.
liked that, I liked that she had like guest artists on this. Like I really wish the Billy String song "Everybody Wants to Be a Cowboy," like that was a great song, but I kept waiting to hear Billy String sing. He never
Yes,
did.
dude.
Yeah, that was so I understand having him on the album, but I feel like there was nothing about that screamed to, like, if I didn't see that he was featured on it, I would have never guessed that was anything other than just another song on the album.
Yeah, such a bummer. There was like better guitar work on some of the other songs, or like more prominent guitar work on some of the other
Like with
songs.
the one Uncertain Texas with Willie. Like that's very clearly Willie Nelson like guitar style on that.
Yeah. So I was, yeah, I was, I don't want to say I was shocked, but I was surprised that there wasn't more of a vocal presence from Billy Strings, or like a guitar solo, or even like
Mm.
a particularly complex and interesting guitar part. Like I get it, it's her album. You don't necessarily need it to pull focus, but I mean, you got Eddie Van Halen playing on Beat It, like
Mhm.
that's still Eddie Van Halen and it's still Michael Jackson, and it didn't detract from one another. So that just felt like a weird misfire in the collaboration category. Conversely, on Coyote, this Gregory Alan Isakov,
Mhm.
that came together really, really nicely. I think the features were probably my least favorite ones on here.
Yeah.
Everybody Wants to Be a Cowboy is not bad. Uncertain Texas is not bad. I love Coyote. Horses and Divorces is hokey, and the like, you see the scene, it's the two of them sitting at the bar and they got their little glasses of whiskey, and we like to cuss and drink whiskey,
Mhm.
and it's just like, all right, we get the picture. It's well-trod territory, and it's just like not that like fun or especially compelling. But that really, to me, again, that song really is the low point relative to the quality on this. Even something like Back on the Wagon
Mhm.
is so simple. It's such like straightforward storytelling. I'm just laughing because I remember something friend of the show Axel said that Back on the Wagon reminds me of. But it's very straightforward. It's not like breaking the wheel lyrically. It's not reinventing anything musically, but it's that distinct point of view and that real earnestness in the delivery. She's like very, very, very commanding with her voice. She's so comfortable in country that like when she sits in this pocket, her voice really shines. Deeper Well, there's some stuff, like I specifically think of the song Cardinal, Cardinal,
Yeah.
where it's just like not like the breathy Laurel Canyon thing isn't really coming together. Star-Crossed was too poppy. When she's in her more country guided element, she really comes across as confident, especially vocally. And so I think, she's not doing any like crazy runs or tricks out of nowhere, just a somewhat limited range, but used to deadly effect on this one. It's great,
Mm.
confident showwomanship on this.
Yeah. And I really, I mean, you had like Dry Spell, fantastic. Like Middle of Nowhere was great. I really love the song Hell on Me. Like I think that's like very,
Yeah.
very classic Kacey. Especially, I tried to be your angel, but you made it hell on me. Like that's such a good country music line. And I think she's so matter of fact. I think when she, I think you're right in that her vocal range is just not, and you can especially hear it on the song with Miranda Lambert, because like Miranda Lambert she can belt it. She might not have a huge range, but Miranda Lambert she can project, she can belt it. That's why that song, you're not Your Mama's Broken Heart, that one that she took from Kacey Musgraves, like that's why that song I think works. Like I don't know how well that song would have worked with Kacey Musgraves singing it. I don't know that she's got like the projection power to like make that have the snarl that it needed to have that Miranda Lambert gave it. I think the Gregory Alan Isakov song, I remember I had one of my exes listen to a lot of Gregory Alan Isakov because he's very much a like singer songwriter, like acoustic. Has some really good production. Like I would compare him, I guess, kind of like to Bon Iver, like that kind of style of music. I don't know how familiar you are with him and like his previous work. He's
Not really.
very talented, like very, very interesting songwriter, like very interesting voice too in his own stuff. Like I think you'd like it. Um, I think there are some really, really strong songs like Mexico Honey is great with that kind of like Tejano influence. And I like that she is trying to explore that stuff. I like that she's as much trying to explore herself as she is these different forms of country music. And I think she gave a quote where she said, I've always felt like I've had a foot in country music, like, but I've always tried to bring other things to it. And I think swing and a miss with Starcrossed. I think if you go back and listen to our episode about that, it was like a big time swing and a miss. Like that would probably get like a 5 out of 10 for me if we were to have the same rating scale at this point. Deeper Well for me, I think probably would have been a 7. Definitely more favorable. This album, I think, is creeping up closer now. I don't know that it reaches Golden Hour levels, but I think this is a much stronger effort, and I feel like much more representative of kind of who Kacey Musgraves is and like who she's always been. And I think there's a lot of room to grow within this sort of thing too. I think there's a lot of elements, like if she wants to dip more into that kind of Tejano like style of music, I think she's great at that. I think her voice suits that extremely well too. I think that, if she wants to get more into that like dance hall kind of country, I think her voice suits that really, really well. I think the idea that she can be a folk singer, I think that doesn't necessarily work. The idea that she can be a straight pop star like Taylor Swift, I think Starcrossed was probably her attempt to like kind of bridge that gap, just like Taylor Swift did. I think her strength is having that foot in country music. And I think not only just a foot, I think she needs to have most of herself in country music and just kind of bring in those other elements. That's why the Billy String song was a little bit disappointing, because I'd like to hear Kacey sing some bluegrass. Like I think that would be kind of cool to hear. I would like to hear, I think she could do well with the Gregory Alan Isakov like style music, that kind of like almost like ethereal kind of indie style, that Bon Iver kind of indie style, because I think that voice that she has lends itself very well for that too, because it can sound very meaningful. Like I think she doesn't have the ability to do that snarl like Miranda Lambert does, like now like Ella Langley does, one of the more popular country artists. She doesn't have that like punch to her voice like those other artists have. What she has is the songwriting talent and the ability to deliver clever lyrics with some emotional weight to them, which a lot of those other people can't do. And I think if she sticks with that, she is going to go down as one of the best female country artists ever, if like this is the path that she sticks with.
She's got the charm, she's got the songwriting ability, she's got the good sense. I think Starcrossed suffered from the emotional context of it. It just, I don't know whether it was like a misfire of catharsis, or this is like people are going to want me to address this. And I don't mean to like question her artistic integrity, but I think just being still close to the divorce and close to the subject matter, that's how it felt, was like, too soon. And also just like choosing pop as a vehicle for that didn't really mesh. So that's like the one big, and I don't even think Starcrossed is like a stinker, but it was like, I remember when we hit it, I was like, oh no, like no. You learned all the wrong lessons from Golden Hour. To see the train go back on the tracks for Deeper Well, the folk singer songwriter Kacey Musgraves worked for me certainly better than pop, and worked pretty well for me overall. But it's like you said, when she's got her her feet planted firmly in the Texas clay, she's at the peak of her powers. I'd love to hear her go bluegrass. That'd be fun. There are so many artists that I'd love to hear her work with, but at the same time, she's usually at her best when she's on her own. And continuing the string of Lonely songs, we have Lonely Weekend off Golden Hour. We have Lonely Millionaire off of Deeper Well. And now we have Loneliest Girl on this one. And I think to a certain extent, I kid, but that idea of like the lonely girl, she is at her best when she's doing her own thing by herself. And she doesn't seem to be someone easily influenced by industry pressure or the needs of the people around her. I think she just knows it's going to work. And watch the country music establishment totally ignore this album. The most countrified thing she's done in years. And I bet you it's going to get no flowers from the country music circles, which is a shame because I think this album certainly deserves it. I think she certainly deserves it. Liked this a lot more than I thought I would. High re-listenability factor for me. Some really great songs off of this. For me, it's an 8 out of 10.
That is, we are one mind tonight, my friend. 8 out of 10 is exactly where I land on this one. I think there was definitely room for improvement, but not much. I think the only room for improvement there would have been if was probably just by a little bit of subtraction of some things. Like, I think of the things that I really loved on this album, there's nothing I would have added to those. I think there was, I guess more Billy Strings. Maybe they'll come back at that sometime. I bet you they like met up at a festival or something, and that had to happen, like fly by night kind of thing. Because I can't imagine if they were able to actually get like fully in a studio together, that's all they would have come up with. I think it was probably just like a reach out and here we go. And I know she hangs out with Willie Nelson quite a bit, like they're in touch all the time, so that didn't surprise me. Really happy to see her like mend the bridge with Miranda Lambert. Really happy to see Miranda Lambert, who was pretty notoriously like, I think, kind of a tough person to deal with, also mend that bridge with her. I think there's a lot of growth on this album. I think it's her realizing that she is a country artist. Now, she can bring in some other things with that, but she's a country artist. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that was the issue, is she felt like she needed to just like break out of being just known as that. But it's like, you don't need to. Like, there's a place for that. Some of the best stories that music has ever told have come from country music. And so I was really happy to see and happy to hear, just how back to her roots she got to on this album. It's very, very good. Well, Alex, where can folks, we've talked about her past albums so many times on this episode, but where can folks hear us talk about them even more?
Well, if you wanted to get back to our roots while getting back to Kacey Musgraves' roots, there is one convenient location where that could transpire if you are intrepid, nay, noble enough to take the plunge and make it happen. And that is youtube.com/C/out on that line. Gang, it's the same song and dance every week. You keep coming back. We got to stress that you need to subscribe to the channel. You have to hit the thumbs up so that you like the video. You got to hit the bell so that you find out when we put this new stuff out, because we do it on a fairly erratic schedule, which I think is fun. It keeps you on your toes. And it's just kind of more interesting for us if we were like, oh, we're going to be like so slavishly devoted to making sure something comes out every Monday and every Thursday and just being so, like, where's the fun in being that structured? Some of the best music we listen to and review on this show is far less structured than that and better for it. So why would we dive into conformity now when we're known for our peacocking, we're known for our individuality, we're known for our sterling personalities, and we're known most of all for our humility? Okay? To quote Bunk from the show The Wire, I'm just a humble motherfucker with a big ass dick. So if you want more of that kind of energy, you need to go to youtube.com/C/out on that line and aura farm in the comments. That's a new thing, aura farming. Just get in there and do that. I don't know how, but like, that's your job to figure it out, not mine. Not my job to educate you. I want you to get in there and mix it up with your fellow citizen in the comments. Very important. Hype the video if you can remember to do that as well. Share it with a friend. And for God's sakes, folks, remember that we're on Spotify too. Okay? We're everywhere. We're like the wind. At youtube.com/C/out on that line.
That was really well done. And make sure, yeah, definitely hype those videos, folks, because apparently that is a big deal and it would really help us along in our careers as music critics, journalists, music know it alls. That might be more accurate. And folks, until next time.